So there's some research out there, and what they're saying is about 12% of the people that meet online are divorced, or they divorce within the first 3 years. And then it kind of titrates down to the point to where if they met at work, then about maybe 8% of those people will divorce. And then it kind of goes down to meeting at school and meeting to family. So the more intimate spaces they are in to meet, they seem to last longer. But for online, it's about 12% of those who end up in a divorce overall. So you're looking at what, about 88% of those who are lasting longer from that online space, which is interesting. And I actually spoke with someone who I know met their now spouse online, and she said, her words were, "Oh, I love my chocolate drop," but
So cute. I love that. That's so cute.
and I said, "Well, what about, that person that you love that you met online? How did you even go through that process?" And she was like, "That's just where I was in life." And it was easy. I could just put my information out there, and it matched me, with what was happening, and we connected. She said there was a difference because of blue collar, white collar. And for some people, that doesn't work, she said. And I had to kind of get past it myself, but we've been married now they've passed the 3-year mark. They've been married now for, I want to say, maybe 5 or 6 years. And and still in love, and it works for them.
That's wonderful. And so 12% for online couples of the risk of divorce, or the getting divorced. What is it for people who meet the old-fashioned way, let's say growing up? Or
It's about 3%, which is interesting, right?
it's even lower.
It's lower, right? So the more, based on my understanding and what I know about people and being social, if you're meeting them already in that space and you get to see who they are, then it takes away that question about, am I really meeting the person, or is this their best representative? And so it kind of also goes back to where you are and what's happening, how you're showing up. That creates some of those inabilities to really get to know. And by the time you get to maybe that 3-year mark, you're thinking, this is not what I wanted. But you also have to consider too, how quickly are you getting into this relationship from meeting online? Because for some people, it could just be the joy of being in that online space. They're not really looking for a relationship. There are some people who, when they get ready to do their profile, they lie just because they can. So it can be a game for them. And if they get caught up in that game, it could be a contributor to that early divorce rate.
Interesting. And also, I was thinking while you were talking, and there's that piece that you know them for who they actually are, and I think family might be an aspect too. Like you meet their family, you feel comfortable with everything that kind of makes them who they are.
Correct, because when you think about it, prior to the 1940s, there were these arranged marriages, right? There were families who knew each other and things happening. You kind of really did grow up with them, or you grew to love them as a result of what was happening. But since 1940, people have started dating differently than they did previously. And when the internet came in the 90s, and then when cell phones came out and became popular, and you had access to things right there in your hand, it increased that availability, and it increased the pool of people that you could actually look to see if you like this person, if you like that person. And then to get this pop-up that you had a match, it kind of wakes up some of those happy feelings and those endorphins. And so it's a whole lot that happens in that space now. And people are doing it. And it's not just young people. Older people are getting out there in the scene, that 55 and above, who may have lost their spouse for one reason or another, or they are at that place where they're transitioning in their lives and they're ready for the dating scene again. They're getting involved as well. So it does have some red flags, but it does have some things in place too that can kind of protect those who are seeking to date online.
Yeah, so we talked some of the red flags. You say sometimes people aren't truthful. What are some other things that people need to think about safety-wise, or tips, or
One of the things I think is very important anytime you're dealing with online, with the whole facade about who I am and how I'm presenting, you know, you've heard the term catfished. You heard the term about how people are seeking money. So if someone automatically starts asking you to send them money, or they're telling you to get involved in what I would term now a quick rich scheme, but they want you to invest in something. Those are two financial red flags to be aware of. And if they start asking you about sending them some compromising photos of you, then that would be a red flag. So there are a variety of things, but money has been one of the things that really put people in those precarious situations. If you're going to go on a date with someone, make sure others know where you're going, who you're going with, that type of thing. So it increases the successful chance of things happening well, as opposed to you not sharing what's going on. Because I think you and I talked about it once before, shame does come when you're trying something new. And with online dating, though, that whole shame and guilt is being decreased. For instance, look at the Bounty commercial, where you have a silver senior female who is looking at her grandson's iPad, and she's selecting someone to potentially date. And the spill happens, and you know, that part of the commercial about the Bounty. So eHarmony is out there. People are really putting it out there so that it can be comfortable. It can be utilized and decrease some of the threats and some of the heartaches that does come with dating. You get the power of choice. You get to select. You're in control.
Yeah, because you were talking about how it used to be so much family-oriented, or arranged marriages, things like that. How long do you think does it take for people to find the right one when they know? Is there any kind of number, or is everyone just so different? How does that work?
Everyone is different, and I think the difference comes to you knowing yourself, you being emotionally and mentally ready for that right person, because that's going to be the deciding factor. When you show up in that space, are you open to these variety of people? Are you set on what has happened to you in previous relationships? Have you processed? Have you dealt with some of those things? Are you open to being someone in a better light, or being involved in a relationship? Can you decipher without having any negative thoughts about who this person is? Can you get into a friendship with someone and not bring other things to that friendship? So it really depends on you emotionally and mentally about finding that right person. There are some people who have been on several dating sites, and they have reported that they keep getting the same type of guy. And so I want to use that as an opportunity for people who have had that experience to think about, what is it that's being reflected? Where are you in that space for understanding who you are and what you want from people? What can you give yourself? How do you show up in that space? And that's not a negative, it's not a critique on anyone. No one wants to be alone. No one wants to feel lonely. And definitely during certain holidays, such as Valentine's Day or Christmas, or those moments where companionship matters, you're looking for companionship. But if you haven't worked on some things, you may not get that companionship. You may get more heartache.
So everyone has kind of their own timeline, but it's interesting when you're talking about people kind of search for things. You said they find the same type of person, and it might be because that's that, what do they say, your unresolved trauma, whether it's good or bad, you kind of end up finding that in your partner. Good qualities and the bad qualities, so they kind of end up continuing.
Yeah, it's a repeated cycle.
Interesting.
And, you know, people will prey on that. They will notice that this is where you are, and then they will abuse you in a sense, you know, emotionally, financially, just because they recognize that that is something that you may not have such a good grasp on, and you can be manipulated through that process. So again, while online dating is a great tool now and more people are using it, you really have to be careful, and you really just have to know who you are, and understand what are some experiences you've had and if you've grown from those experiences.
Yeah, and back to like kind of the old-fashioned way of dating. What are some pros of doing it that way as opposed to going the online route? I mean, it feels like people hardly have a really hard time. At least my generation have a hard time finding people that way. Just out like at the grocery store or even at a bar. Like it's hard to find that long-term relationship that way.
There are some conversations surrounding how meeting socially does support having a more lasting relationship. Again, you don't have this space where you can create facades as efficiently as you can online. Some of the things that happen online, people lie about their age, people lie about their body type, people may even put a photo of them that's not them. They lie about their financial means or their job. They lie about where they live. So when you meet someone face to face and you're able to interact with them, you can kind of get a better sense of what's happening, and it decreases the fear of, am I the right person, right? Can I stand up to this, or is this person telling me the truth? You have more immediate responses or interpretations that you can deal with, as opposed to sitting in your head and waiting to see what happens with this online person. And especially when you consider upwards of 80% of the people online are not telling all the truth about themselves. So
that's a statistic.
That's statistics.
Oh, yeah,
Yes, it's one of those words.
Yeah, I know. So wow, why do you think that is? It's just we kind of hide behind. We talk about this all the time. People that hide behind the screen. Like they'll say something critical, but they would never say that to your face,
Right.
and you're just like, why would you feel comfortable typing that, but not,
I think part of it is trying to present a certain way according to how society will accept you, and in some of those areas, it's the fear of missing out, FOMO, and people want to be accepted. They want to be the most likable or whatever on that platform. I've never been on the platform, but they want to be able to have their profile reviewed the most. It's about those happy feelings. It's about those endorphins that, says, I am special, or I do matter, or I am whatever. And there's a real popular TED Talk out about how this one person, she mapped it out. She put her profile out there, and it was a boring profile, a boring picture, the whole 9 yards. And then when she compared to what some of the other people in her age range were doing, she was like, but I don't want to show my cleavage. I don't want to show my arms, my skin. So she found a median to present herself, and she actually ended up with a profile that was highly liked, and she met her husband, and they got married, and they have children, and all is well for them. They've been married again over 5 years. But it was about her knowing what it was that she wanted, what it was she didn't want, and she did some research to figure out what it was that was going to help her to attract the right kind of person.
That is interesting, because I was thinking about the different types of dating apps. Like the couple I interviewed that were on Match, they were saying how there's like stuff about them on there, like things they like, and some dating apps there's that, but some there isn't. But does that increase the likelihood of it working, in the sense like, oh, they like to read, I like to read? Does that kind of matter in the beginning stages of the matching process?
I think it does, because it lets down some guards. It increases automatic conversations. Oh, so you've read The Grapes of Wrath. You've done this, you like that. And so you get common language. And with that common language, it breaks down barriers. And so it's easier to interact and to become natural in that environment than it is if you're not match. You don't have things in common. In most dating apps, that's how they match you, on your commonalities. But if there's someone who has put something there to sound more of this than they are, then that can be deciphered too when you're talking with them and you're trying to figure out, is this the way I want to go? Is this the way I don't want to go? And some of the dating apps will caution you, some of the red flags again would be, don't do so much texting on the beginning. Don't become, they didn't use the word eager, but don't become so overzealous about your interaction with this person, because that could kind of push them away a little bit. And again, so just having balance in that space, but they have different things like personality tests on some of the sites now. Yeah, they do and I thought that was good.
Pay for, and there's ones that you don't. So like this couple I interviewed, they're a little bit older now because they've been married for like 20 years, and they met 20 years ago on Match, or 20 or so years ago on Match, and so I think they actually had to fill out more in-depth stuff. But there's free apps that you don't really do as much. You maybe answer 3 questions and say like whatever you want to share. Really,
like I said, there are a few of them that cost upwards of $48, $50. Yeah, and on those, you do have your more intense processes for getting involved or getting into their portal and creating your profile. So they take you through a lot more strenuous processes. Those that don't have as high of a cost, you're correct. They don't have those processes, because I only noticed a couple that actually had a personality test.
Interesting. And which ones were those? What do you know which ones they're called? I don't even know the ones in personality tests. That's so fascinating.
So there are several that are out there, like Silver Senior.
Oh, okay, so it's for older people.
It's for older people,
that
correct.
Are really like, hey, and first of all, too, like the older you get, the more you're like, I know what I want, I know what I don't want. Like it's very clear to you what you're looking for. Absolutely.
So those were found in more of your senior living space, senior dating spaces, and in those apps. eHarmony has something very similar to one of theirs, but then there are some other things in that space as well, but more of your senior living apps. Forbes actually did that research to kind of compile a safe list that met several different types of things for seniors, and those were a couple that were in there. Pew has done some research, so a lot of people are getting involved and looking at the online dating scene, obviously for curiosity, but as well as creativity, and to see where marketing is, what's happening in that market space, because people are living longer. So when you think about 55 to 64-year-olds, but there are also testimonies for people who are 80. There was one lady who was 80 years old, and she said she wanted to date a younger man, so she's open to a 70-something-year-old person. So the conversations, and for them, they're not necessarily looking for, things that maybe a 30 or 18 or 20-year-old be looking for. They're looking for companionship. They're wanting someone that they can just kind of hang out with and do some things with. Now, if they do something different, that's their business too.
Right, but they just want to enjoy that person's company, find a friend in a sense. Okay, wonderful. Well, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you think would be interesting to note, comparing, the old-fashioned way of meeting to online dating that you think?
I still think it's important to have your friends and families safe and measured input into your dating scene, especially if you're younger or you're not as experienced with dating, because that input does have its rewards. Now, it can have some drawbacks, but there are definitely more rewards to having your friends and family input. Even if you are online dating, being able to share that space with a friend or family member, as I mentioned about the grandmother with her grandson, there's definitely an age gap there, but there's some knowledge that grandson definitely has, that he can support his grandmother in as she's attempting to date. So I think it's important, and it will give you more comfort and confidence in how you show up and being able to make decisions that are better for you long term as opposed to better for that moment.
That's a good point, because I know when I talked to the couple that matched on Match.com, they were saying like, oh my gosh, like me in a public place, like what if they're a serial killer? Like it was really scary back then. I mean, you still kind of have that fear a little bit, like are they who they say they are? But especially like 20 years ago or plus, it's like so new. What does this mean? You're meeting a stranger from online.
And meet in public places, making sure that for some people, they don't necessarily have to pick you up, because you may not want them to know where you live exactly, right? So you can meet in a public place, and at the end of that, you get in your car, they get in their car, and you go back to your destinations or wherever you want. So there are just some, like I said, you don't want to be overly cautious and miss out on the experience, but you do want to be cautious enough that you're safe, and these negative things that can happen do happen to you. So online dating, again, a great tool when it is used effectively and when you understand what you're using it for.
Yeah, What do you think will happen in the future? It's already kind of made leaps and bounds in the sense of being accepted. What do you think will continue with you know, how it used to be to how it is now, and maybe like 10, 20 years from now?
Well, it is showing very good traction. More and more people are utilizing this space to meet people because we have very transient jobs. We're always moving. And even if we're not always moving from one city to another city with what we're doing, our lives are really full, and we're not getting out and dating as much as, you know, going to bars or going to social events. We may go to business events, but some people are not looking to date someone within their company or within their spaces. So this is a great alternative, and I will say it's a safe alternative when done well. So I think it's going to continue to rise, and you're going to see it across a variety of age groups and across a variety of socioeconomic status and across the racial breakup, because it started out as something where you primarily saw white or Caucasian people in that space. There's an increase now of minorities or black and brown people who are showing up in that space now for dating. So it's going to continue to rise.
That's awesome. And it sounds like be accepted socially.
Very much accepted.
People talk about it now and they're like, it's not weird. Like, I don't feel scared. Like, oh yeah, we met on Hinge. It's fine. It's just a dating app. Like, people are like, oh, that makes sense. Like, you're busy. Like, you work a lot. Like, when do you have time to meet someone just out, you know? And
it's a comfort zone, and it's a safe comfort zone. So for you to be able to do something, and like you said, for it to be accepted, and not only to be accepted, but promoted. You're seeing it pop up in commercials. You're seeing it pop up on billboards. You're seeing it pop up in social groups. So with that understanding, it takes away the guilt and the shame.
That's good, because I feel like a lot of us, like, and then that creates fear too. If you feel guilt or shame, then you don't do it. And then you don't want to talk about it, and then it's just, then you're alone or whatever it might be. So
it's normal now.
Yeah.
It has been normalized, and when you get your rising numbers for your seniors that are participating in it, that kind of tells you that we're at a place now to where anybody can have a conversation about it, anybody can participate in it, and it's okay.